No knowledge of heavy metal is required for this one, dear viewer, and the good thing about this opening sentence is that right now, as far as you're concerned, it's Schrodinger's sentence, isn't it? Was it a joke? Was he, that's me, being sincere? The answer, dear viewer, will become clear as you progress through this mess. And the good thing about that sentence is that right now, as far as you're concerned, it's Schrodinger's other sentence, isn't it? Was that a joke? Was he, that's still me, being sincere then? The answer, dear viewer, the I'm standing in front of the biscuit police with chocolate digestive crumbs on my crown answer is, I don't rightly know myself. But if you don't know who Schrodinger is, you might want to reevaluate your life choices. And if you do know who Schrodinger is, then that joke makes no sense. But yet, overall, the whole thing does. See, we're doing all right, and so far you haven't had to deal with specialised heavy metal knowledge of any kind. It's gonna be all right. Of course, the trouble with following up what I certainly felt was a good episode of the Polemics with a direct sequel is the age-old problem: will it be a Cameron sequel or a Fincher sequel? Neither, because I hate both of those movies. So, and because I want to appeal to the broadest audience possible, I thought I'd send my script into one of those Hollywood script doctors. There was this one local guy who everybody said was the person to go to for scripts, and so I called them up, and through a comedy of errors, they're now doing time and have lost their medical license. Now I have no friends and a nocebo script. What does this have to do with heavy metal? Fuck all, beyond the idea that, fuck me, I won't do what I tell me, in the brief for this deep stage dive of my metal years. I rebel against myself, dear viewer, and it don't get more metal than that. Picture the scene, dear viewer. A busy city street, buses rumbling by and the distant chase of sirens echoing through the chaotic urban landscape, and there, with its glass frontage slightly overhung by the block of offices above, was the venue I'm going to talk about now. I'd walk in there through the double doors, the music would be playing at a reasonable volume inside. Well, I say music, what I really mean is muzak, which is music written by a person called Zach. But I'd walk in there past the table of lampshades, and naturally I had no interest in getting a knock-off handbag or clutch, so I walked past them and the soft furnishing stall. That's right, this week I'm talking about the indoor market in Chelmsford. Why would you think I was talking about something else after I'd purposely manipulated the narrative to make it seem that way? But after the long bit about the outdoor market last time, I hope you don't get the impression that the entirety of my early life was taken up by lurking around markets, because that's not the case. I went to jumble sales as well. The indoor market. It's 1987 and I'm a school kid with a school kid haircut and no identity to speak of beyond computer dork. Recently I was introduced to heavy metal by a mate, with Queen being the gateway drug leading to proto-metal band Judas Priest, Venom the first metal band, remember, let's keep the indisputable facts straight, and leading to Iron Maiden and Def Leppard, you know, the shallow end, the kiddies pool. Well, I was a child after all. That was the boy, soon to become somebody who saw little point in becoming a man, but that was where I was. I wasn't a metalhead yet. But now I stood before the heavy metal armourer who would furnish me with the symbols, tokens and banners of my chosen tribe. What was it that my young eyes beheld? What Aladdin's cave of wonders widened my innocent gaze? Why, a panoply of patches, explosions of saturated colour on variably sized black canvases, a tornado of t-shirts in endless competition to be more offensive than the last, pewter skulls fashioned into belt buckles, studded leather belts, studded leather wristbands, rings, necklaces, posters. It was the temple of heavy metal tack. Did I mean tack as in equipment, or tack as in tacky? Yes, there I was, dear viewer, on my knees with arms outstretched in a Christ-like pose, or at least that's how it felt. I think if I'd have done that, the vendor might have had something to say, or worse, unzipped his trousers. Polka dot underpants? Ah! As I'm talking about 1980s Britain, I feel I must point out that it is the national convention that everybody of age from that era is a paedophile until proven otherwise. That's the laws, it's just how it is. But anyway, there I was perusing the patches, purchasing the ones that looked the most badass. It didn't matter a jot to me that I hadn't heard a track by Celtic Frost yet. The patch was epic and it would adorn my jacket. I cared not that I hadn't heard a track by Slayer yet. The patch dripped with contrarian blood and it too would adorn my jacket. I didn't give a tailor's toss that I hadn't heard a track by Gravedigger yet, or heard of them at all. The patch was blank death from a skull's eyes staring down at your oh so fragile life, and it would also adorn my jacket. It wouldn't be long before I was a staunch fan of all the bands on these patches, not Gravedigger, but all the others. And it's not because I heard Gravedigger and thought, oh, this is a bit shit, isn't it? I better rip that patch off of my jacket in disgust. No, it wasn't that. It was just that, for whatever reason, I just never heard a track by them. Not until recently, anyway. Not a fan, if I'm honest. But I still like the patch. I have no regrets. Piece by piece I assembled the outward appearance of an identity before I was properly socialised into the scene, and it took a few years before I realised I had dumped the hated school uniform to accept and don another one. Black jeans, studded leather belt, black t-shirt, denim jacket, Doc Martin boots with the steel toe caps, and I had already started growing my hair out. I thought, if I cloak myself with badass things, then I will be a badass by association, I thought. Did I mention I was a child? I mean, all of that didn't happen on that day, no. I just bought a few patches and some bits and bobs, and then probably went and had a bag of chips while I waited for a bus home, pondering the age-old question of who will be affixing the patches to the jacket. Do you, as a self-reliant and resourceful individual, just sew them on yourself, or do you, as a dependent and whiny crybaby, ask your mum to sew them on for you? Not a one of my heavy metal pals had their mum do it, because we'd all gone through home economics at secondary school, where you learn to cook, sew, open a tin, so we all knew how to sew, and so we did. There's a natural break in the story, so I'm going to tell a heavy metal joke that requires no knowledge whatsoever of heavy metal. Heavy metal bands, they have violent and evil names. There's one band whose name I think is just the ultimate example of this. They're called Alien Weaponry. What a badass name. Violent, evil, just what you want in a heavy metal band name. But I'm not interested in them because I'm interested in a lesser known heavy metal band called Insect Weaponry. Violent, evil, just what you want in a heavy metal band name. They don't really deal in insect weapons, just as they're not violent or evil as the name suggests. Yeah, they wouldn't harm a fly. I'm as pleased with that joke as a toddler who's just squatted over Grandma's antique rug and taken a perfectly formed shit there before turning to the shocked onlookers and saying, "Look at that! I did that! It's brilliant, innit? Oh look, a housefly landed on it, Gran." Okay, you've had your joke, such as it was, but it's time to return to the story. It can't be fun times all the time, you know. There's a set of facts that I have to impart for reasons of import, and that's it. Now I had the patches in hand, and I sequestered myself in the dark tower of my bedroom. Amid fire and molten metal I forged my very own battle jacket. Blood was dropped, spells were cast, Venom, the very first metal band, it's indisputable, was played on the record player. Spirits howled and screamed in the air. Forces of confusion and chaos created a vortex of despair. And with the final invocation and a double locking knot on the last of the backstitching, it was done. The first to comment on my battle jacket was a bridge troll. I say bridge troll, I meant my mate's younger brother. He came up to me and pointed at one patch and said, "Thrash," as though somebody had just pissed in his bottle of Lucozade. How would you tell? And then he pointed at another patch. Thrash, and another. Thrash, and then another. Not heard of Gravedigger? Probably thrash. My mate's brother was into metal himself, Judas Priest being his favourite. Judas Priest might have been proto-metal before Venom, but they grew up to be a real heavy metal band in the end. And Rob Halford was, and always is, metal as fuck. But truth is truth, Venom were the first, and at this point I'd not even heard any thrash. I wanted to. They didn't play it on the radio, they didn't play it on the TV show, and they didn't come to town to play a gig, the thrash. What was it? I wondered. Fortunately, my mate's brother had a mate of his own who had the thrash, so I got to know him, and then I heard an album called Rain in Blood by a band called Slayer, and then, over a short period of time, I heard all the rest. Not Gravedigger, but all the other thrash bands. Love it or hate it, my introduction and indoctrination into it was all thanks to the mate of the brother of my mate, who is now my mate. Having heard the thrash and then death metal, which is thrash growling about death, I sought something more extreme. I was quickly tired of the sonic safeness of thrash and the like, and so I scoured the pages of the heavy metal magazines. We had a few of them. There was Kerrang, there was Metal Hammer, but they were utter tripe compared to Metal Forces. Comparing Metal Forces to the tabloid metal magazines is like comparing the erotic review to the top shelf of the newsagent. But I wasn't looking for a review, dear viewer. I don't even understand why you would even read a review of some music until you'd heard the music itself. How will you know what the music is like from the review? It's not a film or a painting that you can just describe with words. Anyway, I wasn't looking for reviews, I was looking at the adverts. Then my eyes settled upon the words, nay, not just words, but a bold claim. The fastest band in the world. Now, you have to bear in mind that I don't know much about the world at this point. The word napalm didn't conjure up images of weaponized gasoline putting the unquenchable flames to the bodies of innocent children, which is what the USA did. No, because I had no clue what napalm was. To me, it sounded like swaying palm trees on a tropical beach, coupled with the word death. It made sense to me. Yeah, metal, we hate things, even idyllic beach settings. But yeah, I got that album from enslavement to obliteration, and I love it, of course. Certainly fast, but Chuck Schuldiner of Death should have got a fucking writing credit, you know what I mean? That's my hot take for an album released in 1988. Most of the time when it came to trying out new bands, you'd go to the record store. Our Price, that's the main one we had, and just look through the albums until you found an album cover you liked.
Oh, look at that album cover. Such an egregiously offensive and unnatural configuration of the flesh that the art itself averts its gaze for fear or shame.
I'll have that.
Oh, look at that album cover. Such an over-the-top depiction of blasphemous and sickening elements of the spiritual that it shrinks from the light.
I'll have that.
Oh, look at that album cover. It's got a dragon on it, or is it an ancient herbivore with a long neck and wings? Whatevs.
I'll have that. Sometimes you'd go to the record store and find new bands to try purely by virtue of the record label they were on. Two main labels I liked at the time. There was Peaceville and there was Earache Records. They had a lot of good bands when they started out, and I found their back catalogue strong enough to be reasonably sure that anything I picked up from them was going to be a safe bet. It wasn't, of course, which is why I know who Minister of Noise is, Sir Freddie Viaduct. I mean, the music's all right, but it's not even in the same world as heavy metal, is it? At least when Earache tried out an electronic music act, they went with somebody who at least sampled some heavy metal stuff. Imagine you're a jazz enthusiast and you pick up something sight unseen from the Blue Note record label and you pop it on, you expect jazz of some kind, but what comes out isn't jazz, it's just audio of somebody chewing gum. Yet surprisingly, these methods of album selection yielded much more wheat than chaff. You'd scarcely believe it in today's heavy metal climate, but once upon a time, piss-poor production values was no bar to getting listened to. I mentioned Sabat's Dreamweaver before, and really it's the only one I can think of where I thought,
something's gone wrong here, and they were trying to sound good.
There were black metal bands in the Arctic who recorded their second band rehearsal by putting a cassette recorder in the middle of the room on Tuesday and released it as a best-selling album on the Friday. What's this new album, John? Is it television static run through an amplifier and a spring reverb, or is it the latest sounds from Sweden? To which John replied,
They're Norwegians, Mac.
But you could get away with that, shitty production. Metalheads are a forgiving sort. I mean, we forgave Metallica for everything. Oh, news just in? No, we didn't. So when I started seeking out and acquiring demo tapes from heavy metal artists, whether the demo would have any production values at all was a crapshoot. See, in the magazine Metal Forces, which I know you've heard of even though you might not have any specialised heavy metal knowledge, and Metal Forces used to review unsigned bands who would send in their demo tapes, and the magazine printed the band's address and what you needed to pay to get a copy of the demo shipped to you. You could go back in time and pop round to Lars Ulrich's parents' garage. He could have been stopped! So we'd all get together and decide who was going to get what, and if one demo was particularly nice, like Ghost Story Seeds of Destruction demo, you'd also get your own copy. Oh, I've never heard of Ghost Story, Patrick. Who are they? Ghost Story are fine. They made a mark and the artefacts of their time are easily found. The same thing can't be said for Not Drug Free Youth, and I wonder what happened there. Through tape trading, I acquired a tape of a band who called themselves Not Drug Free Youth, no doubt to distinguish themselves from the band Drug Free Youth, a straight-edge hardcore band. I know the terminology is a bit of a handful, but I will explain in depth just exactly what a band is later on. Not Drug Free Youth consisted of a person on a drum kit and a bassist vocalist who affected a terrible, and I mean transparently awful, North American accent. They did a series of half-assed cover versions of various hardcore bands, perhaps a song of their own called Mummy Can I Be Straight Edge, and it was obvious that they had a small audience of some kind because, like myself, they were laughing their asses off. I think they had the spark we look for in artists and performers. Lost to memory now, and there's no mention of them I could find, but I remember them with a big grin. Unfortunately, through the course of the years, I lost that tape and some others that can never be replaced. Things once heard, never to be heard again, except from memory. It's a bit of a downer, isn't it, dear viewer? Which just goes to show you, doesn't it, that ballads have no fucking place in metal. No ballads! Exodus has my back on this one. Oh, they're gone. I do enjoy this quiet time where most people have clicked off ages ago. Not you, but most folks. I'm going to call it here. I've still got loads to talk about. Yeah. Not done the Celtic Frost Cold Lake bit yet, so there's that. All sorts of things I've got. I did the bouncy box at the beginning, so I don't have to tell you not to subscribe, don't like the video, mess with the metrics. I don't have to say it at the end now. I sure hope I actually got round to doing the bouncy box, otherwise people are going to think I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't want people to think about the fact. As the end gets up from its chair and makes an adjustment to its tie, I can leave you safe in the knowledge that now you know. Know what? Whether Schrödinger was joking or not about needing extensive heavy metal knowledge to understand the routine. Thanks for watching. Good night.